your wings.
Hello, mic check, mic check.
Hi, Jean. Good morning. Can you please make your voice louder? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. We are now down to the last part of the 3-day webinar on IRR of RA 9184, RA 3571, and acquisition to disposal of government properties. For everyone's information, we're also live at Facebook. Just visit fb.com/ZN and in YouTube, DepEd Zamboanga del Norte Division. So may I request everyone to focus on the screen for the Philippine National Anthem and prayer.
Share screen. Mag-share screen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit.
Chat na. Kunta. Yung prayer. Share. Ayan ka na. Maximize.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Stop sharing.
Okay.
Under your wings, cover me within your mighty. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the earth. I will be still, know you are God.
Si attorney, wala ko kami manawag pa mo niya. Ako na lang yun na si Sir Paul na din.
And I will be still and know you are God. I will be still and know you are God.
Once again, good morning, everyone. I would like to acknowledge the presence of our two Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, Ma'am Judith Rumagera and Ma'am Judeline Ramos, and for our SGOD Chief, Ma'am Joy Simpson. So to give us the recap on the things discussed on the second day webinar, let us all welcome our Administrative Officer 5 and the back chairperson for infrastructure, Ma'am Helen Tangon.
Ma'am Helen, wala na on ang imong mic.
I-present na lang gayon.
Yan na. Sige na, ma'am.
Pagkabing daw nakapila na ko nagkuan.
Click ka sana eh.
Okay na.
Ulit tumapasan pa rin mo. Click sana eh. Share.
Third round. Can I be heard? Good morning. A pleasant day to everyone, especially to our schools division superintendent, Ma'am Lisa Tabilon, our 3 assistant schools division superintendent, Ma'am Judeline, Ma'am Judith, and Sir Arman. Today, I will just be giving you the recap, or I will walk you through of our second day topics last October 29, 2020. The different topics were managed by expert personnel of our division office. And to start with the first task, yours truly discuss about the bid evaluation of those submitted proposal of our bidders. And then the second topic was discussed by Sir Irby Akailar, which is the post-qualification. And we also have Engineer Dave Patibgayon who discussed the award implementation and termination of the contract. We also have Sir Bikral Dulier who discussed about the disclosure of relations. After that, we have Wilson H. Inding who talk about the alternative methods of procurement. That was the morning topics. And we continued in the afternoon with Sir Robert Poculan was able to give his lecture in the morning. So the whole afternoon, sole speaker is Attorney Ray P. Hanolino Jr., who discussed about the protest mechanism of Rule 17, settlement disputes, Rule 18, penal clause, Rule 11, civil liability, Rule 12, and administrative sanctions. The lectures was a refresher, re-educating those who are already in practice of 9184 and its implementing rules and guidelines, rules and regulation. And it was quite a day, and everyone, including me, was refreshed of how these things are being done by books. Now, since I have said all what I have recalled, I won't be giving the details since it was fully discussed by every speakers. And I would like to give the whole time or the whole morning for the most important topic again. And I would like to say thank you to the program management team, to our supportive schools division superintendent and the 3 assistant schools division superintendent for giving me the chance to be the speaker or one of the major contributor of this 3-day webinar, because I will not be able to thank later since my time is already done today, this morning. Thank you so much and enjoy the remaining day of our webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Helen. And now, to formally welcome us to this activity, let me give to you our Assistant Schools Division Superintendent and the back chairperson, Ma'am Judeline Ramos.
Good morning, everyone. Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am, clear.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Especially to our SDS, Ma'am Lisa Tabilon, ASDS, Ma'am Judith Rumagera, and then ASDS Arman Gumapon, our CID Chief, Ma'am Lilia Abelio, our SGOD Chief, Ma'am Joy Singson, all the participants in this third day of our webinar. Welcome to the third day, day 3 of our webinar. Our topics for today are very helpful to all of us, especially to our school heads, no? Who have challenges, issues on a lot of things, especially if you are handling a school. Marami talaga mga issue dyan, marami mga challenges. One example is if you have a tree inside uh, your school, no, property, isang malaking puno, how would you cut it down because natatakot ka na baka matumbahan ang mga bata o matumbahan ang mga buildings, no? So what are the different processes? Anong gagawin natin? Kasi mamaya akala mo magandang intention mo pero mayroon ka palang nilalabag na batas. Remember, no? Ignorance of the law excuses no one. Maski na our intentions are good, but if we are violating a law, so masasabit din tayo. So another is one of the topics later this morning is how to properly dispose government properties kahit na luma na yan, kahit na panahon ni Kopong-Kopong pa yan, hindi na ginagamit yan. Pero mayroon tayong mga tamang paraan on how to dispose these things, no? Kung minsan sabihin natin, ay, luma naman talaga ito, wala nang silbi. Pero dahil yan ay pagmamay-ari ng gobyerno, hindi po yan personal natin. So, mayroon tayong tamang paraan on how to dispose of these, no, properties. So, I hope that the first 2 days of our webinar, I hope that we have learned a lot because personally, I have learned a lot also, no? I am relearning, unlearning, learning again, no? Learning na naman. New learnings are coming, and then this morning's topics are also new learnings. Maybe some of us have heard of this, but it's also nice to review, no? To revisit this mga Republic Act, these laws, no? These guidelines, because laws are there. Yung mga batas ay nandyan to protect us, no? Not to condemn us, because knowledge of the law will eventually help us, no? Para hindi tayo makulong, hindi tayo masabit, no? Sa ano mang ginagawa natin. So, I hope that everybody will have a joyful and safe uh, morning, no? Sa ating webinar this morning. So, with that, stay safe everyone. God bless. Maayong buntag. Buenos dias. Daghang salamat.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Jillian Ramos. And now to give us a comprehensive discussion on RA 3571 as amended by PD 953, let us all welcome our legal officer, Attorney Ray Hanolino Jr.
Hello, good morning. Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, Attorney, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. So, first of all, I would like to greet happy morning to everyone, especially to our Schools Division Superintendent, Maria Elisa Tabilon, ASDS Ramos, and ASDS Rumagera, and the rest of the EXICOM, and to all the participants who are watching or log in this webinar. Since our ASDS Mr. Sir Gumapon is not available, so I will be taking his topic today. And I was just informed last Wednesday about this one. So, but I prepared for a little presentation regarding this law, the two laws. Okay, so shall I start now? Okay, I will just present window or wait lang. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen? Uh, can you see my screen or not yet? What?
Attorney na ay screen but wala pa ang presentation.
Ah, kadit lang na. Kung tanaw. Ay, sorry. Window na lang yun siguro. Stop sharing. Kani. Okay. Okay, sige. So I will proceed. Thank you very much. So this law is Republic Act 3571 and was amended by PD 953. So initially I was kuan kanang I was feel amazed when I read this one baka nabali kay usually man good PD ang mauna kay since this is the martial law time President Ramos Marcos sorry then RA pagka human na sa martial law and then I was surprised that this law is kuan pa ni before pa sa martial law so 19 I think 1963 and then this law was initially intended for the act to prohibit the cutting or destroying or injuring of planted or growing trees, including the flowering plants and shrubs or plants of scenic value along public roads, plazas, parks, school premises. So, i-include gid diri ang schools and any other public pleasure ground. And then, during the martial law period gi-expand pa gyud ni ang iya ang kuan coverage sa PD 953 nga dili lang siya prohibiting sa cutting or destroying of trees or plants ni kuan pa gyud siya ni gi-require pa gyud niya gitagaag obligation ang mga tao to plant the tree in certain places and penalizing pa gyud unauthorized cutting destruction and damaging and injuring of certain trees and vegetations. So meaning gipa gi-enhance gyud ag maayo ang kini siya nga prohibition to have the obligation to plant trees. So kinsa may gihatagan og obligation ani. So first ato sang ibalik tung ang kuan kining RA 3571 kung unsa ni siya ang iya ang gi-provide ani pero don't know bumbo ra man gyud ni siya. So niingon siya nga in order to promote and conserve the beauty of objects of scenic and ornamental value along public places and help preserve cool, fresh and healthful climate, it is the policy of the government to cherish and protect and conserve the planted or growing trees, flowering plants, and shrubs or plants of ornamental value along public roads, plazas, parks, school premises, or any public ground. So ang coverage ani niya is kanag yung naa sa public places including the school premises. Na for the purpose of carrying out effectively this law, gitahasan ani ang Director of Parks and Wildlife pero di naman gyud nato ni ikita ning departamento or kini siya nga director shall have the power to create a committee. So siguro ato ning kuan ron ma-realize nga part na ni siya sa kuan sa DANR sa Environment and Natural Resources. And kay sa una pa man ni 19 sa pa man ni anyuhan 1963. June 21, 1963. And then niingon siya nga this committee shall coordinate with the Director of Parks and Wildlife the beautification of the respective locality. And shall under its supervision require the school children. So gipa-require pa gyud niya ang mga school children on Arbor Day to plant trees and flowering plants for useful and scenic value in places provided for the preceding paragraph. Okay. So with this law, gi-prohibit pa gyud niya ang the cutting and destroying or injuring of planted or growing trees, flowering plants kato siya. Mao ni siya ang supposed to be general rule. No cutting, destroying or injuring of planted or growing trees, flowering plants and shrubs or planting scenic value along public roads, plazas, parks, school premises or any other ground. No permit shall except kung naay ang iyaang kuan kanang purpose niya or ang iyang reason is necessary for public safety. Mo ni ang first niya nga exception. Or such pruning of the same is necessary to enhance the beauty and only upon the recommendation of the committee. So natay tulo ka compliance before nato ni siya tagaan ta og permit. So number one is necessary for public safety. Number two is necessary to enhance its beauty. Kung atong putlan gamay ang iyaang kahoy nga iyang sanga nga nagkalabong na kaayo. And then napagyoy permit. Mangayo ta og permit or upon approval of the Director of Parks and Wildlife. So as I said nga wala na ni siya ni exist siguro ning kinsa ni nga director. So i-adjust na nato ni siya sa karon nga panahon. Okay. So nako gibutang diri nga ang kining ibabaw mo ni siya ang general rule, ang exception niya ang kini. So mahog nga pwede ra tang putol basta mo comply ta ani nga exception. So niingon siya nga any person who shall cut or destroy or injure trees is punishable by prison correctional in its minimum period to prison mayor. So usually this is kanang correctional penalties kanang less grave lang ni siya na naroon ni siya sa siguro 1 year to 6 years na siguro ni. And then ang importante lang ani niya is naatay note nga not every act of cutting or destroying of or injuring of tree are punishable or is punishable. Because when the cutting is necessary for public safety or pruning is necessary to enhance the tree's beauty, no crime is committed, provided that prior approval is given by the Director of Parks and Culture upon recommendation of the committee headed by the Civil naman to siya committee dito. Pero kini nga committee murag ni-expire na gyud ni siya. By adoption sa present time, so ato lang ni siya tanawon og asa na ni nga committee. So basically mao ra ni ang katong RA 3571. And then if moadto ta sa katong gi-amend kadto lang ha kini. Whereas the planting of trees on lands adjoining the edge of the rivers and creeks in both measure of beautification and reforestation, mao ni siya ang first gyud nga mura og kanang premise sa aning nga law nga planting of trees sa katong bag-o na ni siya katong bag-o the amended nga nga law sa PD 953. Whereas the planting of trees on land adjoining to the edge of rivers and creeks, butangan siya og ang purpose ani niya beautification and reforestation. Then napod din siya usa ka premise kini nga law, whereas the planting of trees along roads and areas intended for the common use of owners of lots in subdivision will provide shade and healthful environment therein. So duha ka buok area ang gitan-aw ani nga kuan ang naa sa edge of rivers and creeks, tamnan siya kahoy ug naa sa kanang common use, kanang naa sa mga subdivisions nga butangan siya og kuan. Ang purpose sa pud ana niya is to provide shade and helpful environment. And then kuan ang uban nga mga provision atong sa previous law gi-impliedly kuan ni siya kanang gi-amend kay iya naman gipasakahan dili naman ang tanan. So niingon siya ang section kuan gipun-an niya ang mga obligation, niingon pud siya diri nga every person who owns land adjoining a rivers or creek shall plant trees. So except when such land due to the permanent improvement cannot be planted with trees, kanang nanay kuan siguro dili na impossible na magtanom kay di og kuan or nasiminto na ba nasiminto na ba ang lugar or nanay mura og flood control nagibutang. So ang every person who owns land adjoining to a river or creek naa siya obligation to plant trees. And then napay laing tao nga kuan sa lahi na pud ni siya nga scenario, every owner of the existing subdivision shall plant trees in open spaces required to be reserved for the common use and enjoyment of the owners of the lots therein, as well as along road service streets. So sa sulod ni siya sa subdivision. So mangutana ta kinsa man ni nga owner sa subdivision, a developer or ang nakapuyo na dinha ato ang tan-awon. The subdivision owner shall consult the Bureau of Forest Development. Kini wala na pud ni exist siguro ni nga kuan asa ni nga bureau, siguro naka-attach na ni sila sa DANR karon nga present time. So bangayo siya o consultation sa Bureau of Forest Development as to appropriate species kung unsa nga mga klase nga mga kahoy ang iya ang itanom. And then napay other sets of kuan person nga every holder of a license agreement, lease or license permit of the government, agkaton ni sila mga permiti kay usum ni sa una nga gipangtagaan na mga gipangtagaan o sa tawag ani mga grantees sa kuan ba sa or mga patentes nga gipangtagaan o mga yuta sa government. So involving occupation and utilization of forests or grazing lands with a river or creek shall plant trees extending at least 20 meters from each edge of the bank or river or creek. So the person herein above required to plant trees shall take good care of them and from time to time remove any tree planted by them in their respective areas which has grown very old, deceased, or defective and replant with trees in their respective areas. Okay. Kini siya nga provision mo ni siya ang sumpay sa ilaang mga task or obligation. So dingon siya nga the trees shall take good care the persons nga gi-mention dire shall take good care of them mo ni iyang number one nga obligation, and from to time remove any tree planted by them. So meaning na ang katong tag-iya ani maka-remove siya sa tree planted by them. So ang pangutana kinahanglan ba ni siya mga iyo og permit kay niingon naman siya nga ang balaod mismo automatically niingon naman siya nga these persons can remove any tree planted by them in their respective areas. So di po siya ka-remove og tree sa dito si Pikas nga kuan silingan nagkatura sa iyang respective areas which has grown very old. Ang reason nga iyang pwedeng putlon ng kahuya grown very old is diseased or is defective and replant with trees. Pero naagihapon siya obligation to replant with another tree sa iyang the same area whenever necessary. So dili siya basta-basta makaputol kay iya amang i-replant. Pero ang pangutana automatically maka-remove ba siya sa iyang tree nga naa sa sulod sa iyang premises. So ato ning tanawon. Kay ang law nagisgot naman nga kuan ang kining PD 953 nakahisgot naman siya diri automatically can remove any tree planted by them. Okay. Sige. So responsibility or mandate of the government to the mentioned person. So mo ni ang iyang mga responsibility nga kuan sa kini nga mga tao. Ang iya ang responsibility plus additional kuan niya responsibility na adri sa ubos. And then na may kini nga shall nga word diri is a mandatory order is a kanang naagid siya kuan ba strong siya nga kuan dili ni siya may nga optional nga may siya may shall man so mandatory ni siya ang iya ang ila ang mga obligation shall so mandatory ni siya dili ni siya kanang sana kanang optional. So sa section 2 niingon siya nga every owner of the land kuan ni siya kanang in addition pud ni siya ari diring kining mga kuanan ni siya kining mga gipang mention diri nga mga person. Every owner of the land subdivided into residential, commercial, industrial lots after the effectivity of this decree shall reserve, develop, and maintain not less than 30% of the total area of the subdivision, exclusive of roads, service streets, and alleys as open spaces for parks and recreational areas. So, kanang atong mga subdivision or kanang mga developer, usually mao ni ang ila ang kuan kanang obligation nga moalat yun sila og 30% for the total areas of the subdivision nga i-allocate siya for parks and recreational areas. Okay? And then kuan pa ni siya exclusive di siya sa mga roads dito sa lots ang 30%. So i-allot na siya sa mga subdivision. So kung makakita tag mga high-end subdivision naa gyud sa maski low-end nga subdivision or kanang mga kuan lang. And then no plan for subdivision shall be approved by the Land Registration Commission. Mao na ni sila ang kuan Bureau of Lands karon at the present time or any office or agency of the government unless at least 30% of the total area of the subdivision exclusive for road service streets and alleys is reserved as open spaces for parks and recreational areas and the owners thereof undertakes to develop such open spaces with 3 years from approval of the subdivision plan in accordance with the development plan. Okay, so maybe karon nga time murag danan ni siya yung mga bag-o nga provisions diri ari kay daghan naman ni siya na usab. Pero dili na naman consider kay wala naman tay kuanan ni wala tay sani labot ani nila. Dire lang ta sa PD 953 ang ato lang kuan ani niya nga gipa-expand ang prohibition sa acts to include the damaging
Excuse me, attorney. Excuse me, attorney. Off imong mic.
Okay. Asa ko naputol?
Uh,
Kini,
last
kini, okay na ni? Asa ko naputol, Lupita?
last part sa
Dire,
previous
dire?
slide.
Dire?
Yes.
Dire, are?
Yes, motor na to, ka na to.
No, it's attorney. Yes, yes.
Okay. Sige, sorry ha. Kay, mo ditong naini, kwan, naini prompt. Okay. Ako lang balikon ha, sa PD 953, gi-expand niya ang prohibition sa mga acts, gipang include nila ang damaging, katong damaging wala man ni siya sa niagi nga kuan nga provision, so i-include niya ang damaging not only of trees and flowering plants, but okay, kay kasagara atong sa niagi nga law is public nga properties kanang naa sa mga eskwelahan, nasa kuan. Then ang kini siya gi-include, ang kini nga law gi-include niya ang private nga roads or private nga mga ownership nga mga kuan, like subdivisions, river banks or creeks. So kini nga law actually gi-expand niya ang katong previous law nga gi-intend lang for public places. Okay? Sorry. So sa prohibition, sa penalty, ang kining section 3 niingon siya nga any person who cuts, destroys, damages or injures naturally growing plants or trees, flowering or ornamental plants, other than natural parks, school premises, or any other public ground or places, or on banks of rivers or creeks, along roads and inland subdivision or areas therein for common use of the owners of the lands therein, or the species of vegetation or forest cover found therein, shall be punished with imprisonment for not less than 6 months. Okay. So basically, gi-penalize niya not only katong makita na mga plants or pag-cut, destroy, damage or injure sa mga plants or mga trees nga not only belonging to public places or parks, school premises or any public ground, but also including the private areas. So dili lang kay naa sa public places nga mga trees or mga plants or mga flowering ornaments, kundili ang including na ang public, private nga mga lands. And then ang penalty niya gi-increase pa gyud kay ag sa niagi kuan ra man to siya prison correctional to prison mayor. Karon wala na siya nag-mention og ingana nga kuan kanang mura og mo range lang like sa revised penal code, kundi iya ni specific na gyud siya og pila ka years ang gi penalize ani. So ningon siya not more than 2 years, or I mean not less than 6 months but not more than 2 years, or a fine not less than 500 pesos and not more than 5,000 pesos. Dayon na siya exception nga giingon nga when the cutting or destroying or damaging is necessary for public safety. So kato giingon ganina, ang kini nga mga kuan nga mga exception kining necessary for public safety, kanang pagputol nimo is ang purpose is necessary for public safety, necessary to enhance the beauty, or naa kay approval sa authorized representative of the head of agency or political subdivision having jurisdiction therein, the kuana iya anang wala ni siya kuana kanang wala na siya criminal nga liability. And then ang ningon lang iya na po gisumpayan diri nga kay wa man gud to gi-clarify sa ag sa niagi nga kung kinsa nga person ang moputol, kung ang corporation is ang kung ang offender niya is ang corporation partnership, kay wala man gini tawo nga ni kiss ani nila, puro man ni sila mga dili man ni sila natural person. So ang gi-penalize ani nila ang katong mga officers sa kuan ani nga mga kumpanya or ani nga mga partnership. And then, in addition to the penalty herein prescribed, he or they shall be deported kung alien ni siya ang kanang officers ani niya sa kumpanya, kanang mga dili Filipino citizen. So, deported. Sige. So, I think ang importante lang ani is gi-provide niya ang unsa ang gi-penalize o unsa ang mga acts nga gi-penalize, then pila ang iyang penalty og ang unsay exception. So moro ni ang importante ani niya nga section. Sorry. Okay. So balik ta sa kining notes siguro kung ato i-compare ang duha ka law, as in sa RA 3571, an exception is made by PD 953 of cutting for public safety or pruning to enhance the beauty or the tree, plants or shrubs upon the approval of the duly authorized representative of the head of the agency. So pareha sila nga naa sila exception. Okay, so pareha sila na exception. But sa section 4, niingon siya nga kung ang ni violate aning section 1, ang section 1 is katumang mga persons nga gipang mention diri are kung public officer ni ang kuan sorry. Okay. Kung public officer to siya or employee, in addition sa iyang penalty nga kuan nga in addition ato nga penalty nga gi-provide ani nga law, he shall also be dismissed from public service and disqualified perpetually to hold public office. So in addition ni siya sa iya ang penalty of imprisonment. Okay? So ang person nga gi-refer ani niya is agatong kuan kanang every person who owns lands adjoining river or creek, every owner of an existing subdivision, developer ni siya kay owner ang kasagaran ni owner or developer, lahi man pud ang developer usay siya may mag-develop but lahi ang owner. So depende lang na siya sa circumstances niya. Ang patente mo ni siya ang mga person nga kuan ani usay ang patente katong natagaan og patent nga ibutang sa unang panahon, tagaan na sila og 24 hectares to plant to use the land. So mo ni ang mga patentes. Ang ilaang obligation anito adito gilista sa first section, but kining kining sa section 4 ang mo ni ang ilaang gi person nga gi-refer aning mga kuan na kining iyang penalty. Then kung mahitabo nga public officer siya, ma-dismiss pagid siya sa public service o ma-disqualify pagid siya to hold public office. Okay? Now, kung elected official ni siya, din siguro dili na po ni siya kalansar og kuan. Dili na po ni siya kalansar og public office. Kay og appointed po ni siya, now dili na gid po ni siya madawat sa any public service or public office. So, sa section 5, any person who shall violate the provision of this section to hereof or any regulation promoted thereunder shall be punished with imprisonment for not less than 2 years, but not more than 5 years or a fine equivalent. Okay. In addition ni siya sa section 2, kining ganina, ang person nga gi-refer ani niya ang katuning mga nagkuan og subdivision. Okay. Kini. Dayon at current valuation of the area representing 30% of the total area of the subdivision, both such fine and imprisonment. So kung wala niya gi-comply tong 30% nga total area sa subdivision nga i-allot for recreational areas, so na siya penalty sa aning provision. Ang person nga gi-refer lang ani niya is katong every owner of the land subdivided. Katon ng owner ani. Kung kinsa tong owner or kinsa na nang nakapalit or namuyo, na mo na siya. Pero usually gi-develop mo muna beforehand sa nakapalit. So posible kato gyud ang original nga mo violate ani kay di po na ni ma-approve ang ilang subdivision kung wala sila nag-create ani. Ang katong buyer ani nga nakapuyo na din ha or nakaprocess na din ha, usually nahumana na ni ang kuan ani nahumana na pag-allocate, nahumana na ang subdivision. So sa PD 953 gi-reduce niya ang penalty kay to an imprisonment of not more than 6 months but not more than 2 years or a fine not less than 500 pesos but not more than 5,000 or both at the discretion of the court. Gi-reduce niya kay ngano man ang sa 95 at sa 3571 ningon mo siya prison correctional until prison mayor. So moingon kag prison mayor, usually heavy penalty ni siya mo abot ni siya og 6 years. Nga karon iya nang gi-specify nga not more than 6 months but not more than 2 years. Then napag penalty nga civil liability of 500 but not more than 5,000 or both. Depende sa imo ang kuan sa discretion sa court. So okay, mo ra man pud ni ang last nga mga provision. Niingon siya diri nga the director of forest development shall issue rules and regulation, but dili wala naman ni siya ni exist karon, so maybe na transfer na gyud ni siya tanan dito na sa DENR. And then kanang ningon siya nga all laws, rules and regulations part here inconsistent herewith are hereby repealed. So mo ni ang iyang repealing clause. So ang katong mga inconsistencies nga mo contradict na ani nga provision sa previous law or all laws nga mga niaging nga mga law nga mo contradict ani niya during this time are repealed. So possibly nga ang katong dili gyud posible ang katong 3571 nga mga conflicting provisions ani niya or katong mga gipang-enhance na repealed na kanina gyud siya ang basis. And then kay kuan man ni siya kanang 1976 pa man gud pud ni siya na natukod, so posible daghan na nga yung mga law ani nga na napuno na daghan nga usab ani. So kay diri naman kutob ang ako ang discussion, ako la i-touch gamay. So syempre ang during this time ang mga kabalo gid ani ang mga nagpaputol og mga kanang nagpakuha og permit labi to nakapalit og yuta or nagkuan nga mangayo sila og permit to cut trees. Kay kami ni agi nakasulay sad mi ani karon nga time 2020 nga dili gyud ay siya sayon magpaputol og trees maski na naa sa imo ang premises imong napalit na nga yuta. Maski ang tag-iya ang owner kuan dili pa ka paputol ana nga kahoy paitan ang kinangayutaan gipalit na nimo. Gamito na nimo siya for commercial purposes or residential purposes baron. Ang pagputol sa kahoy kuanan pa na siya og kuan kanang permit, daghang kay permit, not only the DENR nga moadto ka sa office of sa Senro but also the city. Then pagabot sa city na po na siya permit dito sa barangay. Unsa man na ang ilang mga permits? Daghan. For example, fruit bearing trees. Mingon sila nga dito na sa barangay. Other trees kanang mga mahogany, mga kuan dito sa Senro, kanang mga uban pa nga mga kahoy nga mga endangered species like baliti o sa nang mga kahoya dito sa Senro nga regional office. So daghan kayo nga kuan. So kung mahitabo na siya sa atong eskwelahan, now that is a question. So kung unsa na ang mga kahoya nga naa sa atong eskwelahan, mo adto gyud ta sa musik kita og kuan kanang matuta sa barangay, matuta sa sa local nga LGU o sa Senro. Kana sila nga mga agency, kuada sila kanang mga authorized agency na sila to advise us on what we are going to do. Mukuha ba tag permit? Then lahi pud na ang pagpa-transport. So for example, ang coconut tree dili man na makahandle ang DENR ana kung atong eskwelahan ay coconut tree nga atong putlon, then dili ta madto sa DENR kun dili madto ta sa PCA or the Philippine Coconut Authority, PCA, Philippine Coconut Authority. And then pag-abot ito sa PCA, ang kanang mga coconut na atong gipangputol din na sa kuan or ang kuan ang muputol ana na pag yun na siya permit, mga tree cutters na sila, mga mo kanang muputulay kanang mga tig chainsaw nga atong giterm tig chainsaw diha, napa na sila permit pod kana sila ang motor, kay kung wala na sila yung mga permit takpon mangyapon na sila sa PCA or sa DENR. And then kanang mga maputulay or ikaw nga nakaputol sa kahoy nga nagpa-permit, although gi-allow ka niya nga maputol na sa government, then dili po na nimo siya basta-basta i-transport kay mangayo man ka og permit to transport. Ang kanang imong permit to authority to cut is not a permit to transport. So kung ang imo ang kahoy imong gi-transport sa lain nga lugar, gikarga pa gyud nimo og sakyanan, usually dakpon gyud na ang imo ang kahoy ug ang imo ang sakyanan. Kay mo man na siya ang kuananam po na siya corresponding criminal liability, kay sa bag-o nga mga balaod nga na pass after na ani nga mga balaura kay 1970 sa puning anyuhan ni pantantaw kung tawa ni daghan ng mga kausbanan. So dili lang ta basta-basta mo puto. Ang message lang ani is kuan kanang we seek permit before we cut the trees. Okay, so ako lang ni end dito nga kuan ang discussion, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Attorney, for that comprehensive discussion. And now let us proceed to the discussion of acquisition, receipt, recording, safekeeping, and inventory of government properties, which will be discussed by the Senior Education Program Specialist for Planning and Research and the OIC for Supply, Sir Leonido A. Pampilo Jr.
Hello, good morning. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Okay, full screen akong presentation. Jen,
Yes, sir.
is my presentation on full screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much and good morning to everybody, to our ESDSS, to our SDS, to our division chiefs. Good morning, and everyone is listening and tuning this morning to this webinar. Good morning, better morning to everybody. So I'm going to be talking about the receipt and inventory of government properties. Actually, this is a um, very short topic. That will be included. That will be included in this webinar. So let us talk about the receipt and inventory of government properties. Now, for the supply office or the supply officer, let me highlight this, that we are not we don't have anything to do with the procurement of goods, goods and materials, and other properties, but it is the job of the Bids and Awards Committee to procure this. So the role of the supply officer or the custodian, property custodian, in our schools or in big schools, there are supply officers, is to safekeep and receive the procured materials. So let me underscore this. Receipt of these materials and taking care and inventory of these materials is what is what is where the supply officer will come in. But in the procurement, it should be the bids and awards committee. Now, when the materials are already procured, so upon the delivery of goods to the schools, it is the supplier or which have to bring the following documents to the schools and turn over the property custodian, the delivery receipt, and the inspection and acceptance report, which in many cases, the inspection and acceptance report are actually prepared by the supply officer. Dili na ang supplier mo ay mag-prepare ini. However, the delivery receipt will be prepared by our supplier, and the school property custodian or the supply officer or its designated alternate should have to perform the initial checking of the physical conditions of these goods, so prior to signing of the delivery receipt. So it's very clear nga ang mudawat sa mga procured materials or procured goods is the property custodian or ang ang supply officer. So before it is going to be issued to the end user. So this is true also to the schools, wherein dili kay ang end user mo palit dito sa atong palitanan, kung dili ang atong procurement entity sa school, and then it will be turned over to the property custodian, and the property custodian is going to issue this to the end, the goods, the materials to the end user. And the property custodian should see to it that the physical conditions of these materials, they are in good condition. So that's very clear. So maybe sa atong mga schools, ang atong himuon, ang end user mo adto dito sa supplier, sa store, kay mo ay mukuha sa mga goods, mga properties, mga goods nga atong gamiton. That is not supposed what is going. That is not how it is supposed to be. Ang ato ang procurement entity sa school will be in charge of the procurement. This should have to be clear, especially sa atong mga head of offices, sa atong mga principals. Please correct the practices ninyo nga ang atong end user moadto dito sa tindahan. Okay. Dili na siya mao, naatay procurement entity, naatay procurement committee siguro, na inyong kagalingon nga back sa inyo ang mga schools, procurement sila mag-procure. Walay labot sa procurement ang ato mga head of offices, ato mga principal, naatay tig-procure. I-turn over sa property custodian, then i-issue sa property custodian dito sa ato ang mga end users. Now, for the delivered items, there will be an inspection by the school inspectorate team. I hope the schools already have their inspectorate team, because the inspectorate team will inspect the delivered items. So it is the inspectorate team that shall sign the inspection report if the deliveries comply to the requirements. If the deliveries does not comply to the requirements as what is stated in the purchase order, it will be rejected. So meaning to say, kung dili siya mao sa specification, like for example, bond paper, o kung saan gibag-on sa bond paper, o sa klase sa bond paper nga nasa PO, dayon dili na siya mao ang i-deliver, it should have to be rejected as as inspected by our school inspectorate team. So that is how we are going to receive our goods. Okay, so principals, please take note of this. Take note of this. Basig matiki ota. Okay, mat-technical knockout agi sa process. Okay, in the receipt of goods. Now, after receiving the goods, our property custodian or supply officer shall perform an inventory. Okay, and no shall take charge in the safekeeping of the goods or the properties that is already procured by the school. So after in the taking care of these goods, okay, there is what we call as inventory taking. So mag-inventory ta sa ato so that we can maintain the integrity of the property custodianship. So take note that inventory taking is indispensable. Okay, it is an indispensable procedure. A procedure that every property custodians, every supply officers should perform so that we can check the integrity of the custodianship of these properties. So it includes physical stock taking of our equipment and supplies. That is going to serve as the basis for the preparation of accounting reports. So it is the accounting and the supply office or the units in our entity, okay, should have to reconcile their records every quarter. So at the end of each quarter. I hope that siguro ang ato ang mga schools wala may accounting department, but it is the property custodian or the designated supply officer should have to have an inventory taking at the end of each quarter and see to it that the goods that we have procured are in good condition and taken care of. So our property custodians will have to take a physical inventory of all the equipment and goods, okay, of the respective offices, okay, at least once a year. So usually this is equipment ni siya, mga equipment na to. So kinahanglan na atay inventory once a year. Mag-inventory ang atong property custodian or the designated supply officer. So for the supplies and materials in stock, including everything that we have in our school, like for example medicines, medical supplies, unsa kay nga supply nga naa nato, okay, there should have to be inventory that should have to be made every 6 months. That is June 30 and December 31. Okay, for our textbooks, the inventory shall have to be undertaken at the end of every school year. Supply officers and property custodians, please take note of this. Later on, we are going also in the division to ask you for the report of your inventory, especially textbook and properties and equipments. So now, for our inventory taking, there are 3 very, very important steps. The first is we plan the inventory taking, we create the inventory committee, and we create the physical, we undergo the physical inventory taking. Now, let us go to planning. Okay, planning of inventory taking. So the supply officer, as in the case of our schools, mostly they are property custodians, shall have to prepare the inventory guidelines and should have to send it to the head of the agency. As in the case of the schools, it should have to be sent to the principal. Ang ato ang inventory guideline. So nata inventory guideline. Later on, we will provide you technical assistance to the schools. We are going also to give you a sample of the inventory guideline. So tagaan ra mo namo og sample para nga naamoy prepared nga inventory guideline in your school. So the planning of physical inventory, okay, there should have to be a set of written rules, okay, instruction, okay, that should have to be observed during the inventory taking. So this instruction should have also to be approved by the principal. Ako yung istorya ni principal because I believe that ang atong mga schools, ang atong audience karon. So that we can ensure the efficiency and fast work of our inventory. Okay, so all our in our storehouse or storeroom that we have, they should have to be labeled and they should have to be arranged. Okay, natay inventory tags that are serially pre-numbered and prepared in duplicate copies separating the top bottom portions of the tag. So later on, maghatag rami og sample nga inventory tag among gigamit diri sa ato ang division office. So that is the planning of the inventory taking. So before the ta sa inventory na atay himuon mga property custodians. Now, for the division office, we have an inventory team sa division office. I hope that ang atong mga schools will also create that hope, but you should have to create your inventory team also, your local school inventory team. Okay, that is to facilitate the inventory taking. Now, after the creation of after the planning, okay, of the inventory taking, wherein there is already guidelines, wherein everything is pre-labeled, wherein everything is tagged, okay, that is pre-numbered, that is now, okay, the time that you are going to create your inventory committee or your inventory team. So, what is the composition of our inventory team? Our inventory team is composed of 2 or more regular employees, including, of course, the property custodian or the supply officer, depending upon the extent of property accountability in a particular office. Meaning to say, kung daghan kayo ang atong inventory, like for example, Liloy National High School, Sindangan National High School, SNAS, mga dagkong eskwelahan, pwede po nga mas daghan pa sa duha. Pero karaman dagmay, those small schools in which kagmay laman atong mga properties diha, kagmay laman atong mga equipment, pwede na duha. Duha or aside from the supply officer, duha, okay, kulora sila kabuok ang mag-inventory during the inventory taking. So, take note that in the inventory taking, walay labot ang principal sa inventory team, inventory committee, whatever you call it. Walay labot ang principal. So, please take note of that. So now, you now have your inventory team, you now have your inventory committee. Okay, the last thing that you do, the last thing that you do is the physical inventory taking. Now, your inventory team, or what we call the inventory crew, shall take the actual count, weight, and measure of the object of inventory. Okay, the name of its inventory item, code number, location, count, weight, or measurement is written on what we call as the ISS or the inventory summary sheets. So, matanaw siguro mo, wala dagway mo'y idea kung unsa ning ISS. So maghatag ra unya mi ang supply office og sample sa mga schools kung unsay nawong anang ISS. And then we will have we will have to teach the coding of our our property custodians rather should have to take note that okay our properties should have to be coded, so naatay mga coding ana. So makita ninyo nga siguro sa ato mga equipment sa ato diri sa division office, many of you nakaanhi naman diri na siya mga sticker. Nadi ang code, number, location, kung saan na siya nga item, which will reflect in the ISS or the inventory summary sheet. Now, in the actual inventory taking, okay, withdrawal from and additions to inventory must be recorded on the count tags or sheets during the inventory taking. So when there are discrepancies between physical and book inventories, this should have to be reconciled immediately. So kinahanglang ma-reconcile gina siya immediately kung na discrepancy na sa inyong book, kunya pilay inyo ang gi-inventory dito, pila ka buok, dili magsibo sa inyong book, sa inyong record, there should have to be a reconciliation of it immediately. So, the proper cut-off must be determined when ang cut-off adto sa record, kay basig na yung withdrawal adto, na siya'y cut-off that should have to be determined so that makabalo ang inventory team kung kanus alang siya dapat, kanus alang dapat itong count count sa atong mga properties and atong mga goods to recon. Like for example, natay mga bond paper, natay 20 boxes of bond paper. And then museta nga ang atong cut-off ini sa January 15. So katong nagamit na siya na withdraw from January 15 pataas, wala na to sa ilabot sa inventory nga, di man to siya mag-reconcile sa book. So dapat siya nga dili na sa i-appeal kay basig na ay mga withdrawal kay gipanggamit. So kato lang as of the cut-off time. So it's very clear that we should have to label all our equipments. Okay, so so that an atong inventory team will be having an easier time in identifying and counting whatever that they are undergoing the inventory. So to achieve permanence and best results, okay, so all of this should have to be printed in indelible ink and pasted on the prominent but secure portion of the property for easy identification. So ang atong property custodians should have to learn na unsaon pagbutang o mga sticker ana atong mga properties. So kung magkaanhin mo diri sa division office, pwede ninyo nga picturean ang atoang mga stickers nga gipatapot sa atong mga properties. Okay, in the labeling and tagging of our properties in our schools. So for the disposal of these properties, it will be taken care of by Sir Irby Akailar. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening. And then, as promised, we will be providing you with samples of the things that mentioned in this topic. Thank you very much. Jean?
Thank you very much, Sir Pampelo. And now to give us information on the disposal of government properties, let us hear from Education Program Supervisor from SGOD, Sir Irvi Akailar.
So my bow of respect to each and everyone, especially to our school's division superintendent, Ma'am Maria Lisa Recabarata Bilon, to our assistant schools division superintendent, Ma'am Judith Romagira, Ma'am Judeline Ramos, to Sir Armando Pakatang Gumapon, to our chief of the SGOD, Chief Education Supervisor Dr. Joy Retran Sixon, Chief of the CID, Ma'am Lisa Abilio, our Administrative Officer 5, Ma'am Tangon, Attorney Ray Hanolino Jr., and the rest of the Execom, participants on the web or on this platform. So a much better and quality morning to each and everyone. So my task for this morning is to discuss on how to dispose educational facilities or the disposal of educational facilities, specifically in the Department of Education or in our custody. So despite the proliferation of various laws, rules, and regulations governing disposal of property, a considerable quantity of unserviceable or no longer needed or obsolete, forfeited, seized supplies, materials, and equipment, and valueless records, which have grown into unmanageable and uneconomical proportions, now exist in the various government agencies. To save on cost maintaining such property, there is a need for their disposal. No, not only the property or the materials and equipment, but also the supplies or the unmanageable uneconomical proportions of records or the valueless records, no, katong mga obsolete na. So there's still a proper way of disposing as such. So pursuant to Executive Order number 888, Section 1 and the COA or the Commission on Audit Circular number 89-296, the full and sole authority and responsibility for the divestment or disposal of properties and other assets owned by the national corporate and local government units, including its subsidiaries, shall be lodged in the heads of the departments, bureaus, and offices or governing bodies or managing heads of the concerned entities. So in our case, so if it is the property of the schools division or in a proper SDO office, it is lodged to our schools division superintendent. Then in the school level, still it is under our schools division superintendent through the stewardship of the principal. So disposal is the end of the life cycle of a government property. This section